All right. Good evening, everyone. We're about to start with our webinar. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope that you're staying safe and healthy regardless of where you are in the world right now. Super excited to have you all here tonight. My name is Sandrine, and I'll be your main host for this evening. So tonight we've prepared a panel of different activities for you guys. And for this, we've invited various speakers, entrepreneurs, and experts who are changing the plastic waste scene here in the Philippines. So our event will run from 6 to 7:40 p.m. We'll be starting with opening remarks, overview of agenda, of course. And this will be followed by a panel discussion with our amazing guest speakers who are at the forefront of plastic waste here in the Philippines. After this, we'll be delving straight away into our storytelling activity where you'll be able to meet 5 entrepreneurs tackling plastic waste. You'll also be able to ask them a couple of questions with our Q&A. And after this, we'll be wrapping up our event with the director of Xchange, who will be giving a short closing talk. And at the end of the webinar, we've actually prepared a small surprise for you guys. We're going to be doing some networking on a platform that's called AirMeet, and which aims to replicate the networking experience of how it would look like if you were at an offline event. So I'm super excited for this, and I hope you guys are too. So before we start, I just want to first and foremost talk about Make Sense and what we do. Basically, Make Sense is an international organization that aims to equip passionate citizens, social entrepreneurs, and forward-looking organizations to launch and develop initiatives on social and environmental issues. Our mission is really to empower and guide any person in taking action on the causes that matter to them. So for example, if you as a person, you want to launch a social startup, we can help you out with this. If you also want to run advocacy campaigns on topics that are important to you, we can help you do so, as well as organize trainings and workshops on any issue that's interesting to you. So by operating in around 8 offices around the world and working with over 200 institutional partners, we've been able to support more than 6,000 projects around the world and engage around 250,000 citizens. And these numbers are going up every month. And because of the work that we've been doing, we've been recognized internationally by some of the leaders in the social impact ecosystem all over the world. So for example, we've been recognized by the UN, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Obama Foundation. And today, one of our main areas of focus is really to engage citizens in making our cities more sustainable and resilient. Because by 2050, around 60% of the global world population will be living in urban areas. With climate change accelerating rapidly and affecting many countries like the Philippines, it was really important for us to work on this topic of plastic pollution because it's a big contributor to this issue of climate change. But we're not doing it alone. We're working with the best players we could partner with on this topic. Worldwide Fund for Nature Philippines, an NGO that is championing environmental protection and wildlife conservation, and Xchange, an accelerator in the Philippines that has allowed incredible startups like Rags to Riches develop and scale. Together, we've launched the Plastic Smart Cities program, whose aim is to support the creation and development of entrepreneurial solutions that address the topic of plastic waste. So for the past 6 months, we've been working with a lot of different people who are passionate about this issue, 5 of which are going to be here today. They are the 5 teams that have been selected for the Make Sense Academy, our 6-month incubation program that will transform their project into a social startup ready for scale and acceleration. We'll be talking a bit more about this program later on. So I've told you why we're working on plastic waste, but you might wonder, what's the link between plastic waste and COVID-19? Well, we wanted to address this topic because today this pandemic is revealing a lot of the issues that are affecting our society today. Issues like access to health, to energy, to food, water, economic inequalities, and there are actually a lot of other issues that are being exacerbated by this pandemic right now. It's clear that we cannot go back to business as usual, and we really should see this as an opportunity for us to rethink certain things, whether it's the way we do business, the way we consume, or even the way we look at the environment and how we live as an integral part of it. Plastic pollution is one of these issues that we need to urgently think about, because as I mentioned, it's one of the key reasons behind the acceleration of climate change today. I don't know if you know this, but plastic, once in the environment, can take anywhere between a couple of months and 600 years to degrade. That's a lot of years. And it depends on the type of plastic material, of course. And I'm also sure that you've heard this before, but if we continue this way, there might be more plastic than fish in the ocean by 2050. And once plastic waste reaches our ocean, it really harms marine wildlife and eventually can harm us. Because once it breaks down under the form of microplastics, there's a lot of fish that can eat this microplastic. And if we in turn eat the fish, well, the plastic can end up in our own stomach. It's clear that this poses a threat not only to the environment, but also to our health. And anything that negatively impacts the environment affects us as human beings. And nowadays, during the pandemic, there is actually an increase in the use of plastic materials, as we'll see later. So just to give you some examples, there's protective equipment, such as masks, aprons, gloves, which are used to protect our frontliners from potential contact. But these are really considered necessary because without them, there isn't any protection for the frontliners. But there's also been an increase in what we can call unnecessary plastics. So for example, there's plastic packaging for relief goods and takeout orders, which may be indispensable now, but should not be the trend as we transition to a new normal. It begs the question, can we find sustainable alternatives to plastics? Can we reduce unnecessary plastics while at the same time improve our waste management systems? That's what we at Make Sense aim to do together with our partners. We want to achieve a world where hopefully there's a harmonious relationship that has been developed between human and nature. Luckily, right now, there are a lot of initiatives and actors currently working on this. So just to give you some examples, there's the zero waste lifestyle, which is very much present right now in the Philippines and abroad, with many citizens and advocates that are really advocating for a lifestyle with less plastic. To give you an example, there's the social enterprise Bukit Fresh, which provides fresh fruits and vegetables that are sourced directly from farmers in the Philippines. And they deliver their produce without any plastic packaging, using what they call a returnable and a reusable bayong. With the current lockdown in place, they've been more active than ever in delivering food along with many other local suppliers. I myself am actually an avid user of Bukit Fresh, and I use them to have my fruits and vegetables delivered every week. So sourcing locally has become, a common thing for a lot of people nowadays, and it's one of the positive side effects brought along with COVID-19. Hopefully, this trend continues, and along with it, other new and innovative initiatives can be brought to life to create a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable world. We know that it can be difficult to address issues as complex as plastic waste, and that's why we launched this program, so that together we can reduce, reuse, and recycle our plastic waste. Tonight, we're joined by some of the incredible people who are acting on this topic. Of course, there are the 5 new teams that have really made it their mission to find solutions to plastic waste, who we'll be introducing later. But first, let's meet our 3 amazing guest speakers who are currently working at the front line of plastic waste towards a more sustainable future. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you our very own Angeli Rosella, who is the incubation manager of Make Sense, and who will be interviewing our 3 guest speakers, Serena Constantino, Anna Aposa, and Dr. Tonette Tenchulig. So just a quick heads up for you guys. During the discussion, if you have any questions, You can send your questions through the comment section of our Facebook live stream. And depending on time, we'll be able to take around 2 to 4 questions. So now I want you to give our speakers a warm welcome by flooding our Facebook live stream with likes and heart reacts, because unfortunately we can't clap for them. So this will do instead. Anjali, you're free to begin and introduce our speakers when you're ready.
All right. Thank you so much, Sandrine, for introducing the topic and the agenda to us. I hope everyone's super excited because I know I am. I am very much honored to introduce to you our panel. We will begin by having them introduce themselves, actually. Ladies, I will call you one by one. And if you could tell us a bit about yourselves, please. Let's start with Dr. Tanet. Dr. Tanet, can you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Oh, sorry. I was now. Okay. Again, good evening. My name is Tanet. My full name is Maria Antonia Tanchuling. I work at the Institute of Civil Engineering at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, as a professor. I also teach at the Environmental Engineering Graduate Program of UP. I'm also a principal engineer and one of the founding engineers of AMH Philippines. It's an Filipino consulting firm for engineering. And then my research interests include solid waste management, microplastic pollution, water and sanitation, and also environmental impact assessment. Yeah, thank you for having me. That's all. Thank you.
And we are very much grateful that you are here, Dr. Tanet. We'd love to hear a lot from you later on. Our next panelist is Anna Oposa of Save Philippines Seas. Anna, if you could turn on your mic and video, please.
Yes. Hi, I'm Anna Opata. I am the Executive Director and Chief Mermaid of Save Philippine Seas. I graduated from UP in 2011 with a degree in English Studies. And then I co-founded Save Philippine Seas and eventually got my master's in conservation science. So my job as Executive Director of SPS is to work on saving sharks, my favorite animal, and then working on waste management and circular economy issues and environmental education. That's all. Thanks for having me.
Thanks as well, Anna. Thank you so much. It's lovely to hear from you. And finally, and of course not the least, we have Zarina of WWF. Zarina, if you could turn on your mic and video, please.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Zarina Constantino, the National Lead for the No Plastics in Nature initiative of the Worldwide Fund for Nature Philippines, wherein we work with various stakeholders to stop plastic waste leakage into nature by 2030. So my background is my undergrad is actually psychology, and I really wanted to be an environmental psychology, so I pursued a master's on environmental management. But I guess I'm on my way there with this profession with the WWF-Philippines. So that's it. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you so much, Zarina. It's actually quite interesting to hear from everyone, and it seems like despite having different backgrounds and very unexpected career choices afterwards, bringing you here with us today is almost serendipitous. Thank you so much for being with us here today. You are all very much esteemed players in solving the plastic waste management issue in the country. I would like to know more, Dr. Tanet, if you can tell us about the state of plastic waste flow in the Philippines today.
Yes, thank you. I'll be happy to share with you the results of our study. Yes. So tonight I'll talk about the plastic flow in the Philippines. We're excited to share this with you. This is the first time that we are releasing this data. We did a study together with WWF. So thank you, WWF, for giving us this opportunity to give this, to be able to do this study. So what is plastic flow? Here we'd like to show you where do our plastics go, which from consumption, how much of it goes to where. So we estimate that we're using on an annual basis around 2.1 million tons of plastics. So that's all the plastic products, the packaging that we have, that's the amount. Of this amount, only 9% is being recycled. Okay, so that's a huge amount. To help you imagine the numbers, I have here, oh sorry, can you see this? Okay, I'm not supposed to show the brand, but this is a PET bottle, but it's not showing. Anyway, if you have, let's say you have 100 PET bottles, so only 9 of those is getting recycled. 9 bottles are getting recycled. 2 are being used as we call RDF, or refuse-derived fuel. That's fuel that can be used in cement kilns. And then another 5 is being exported as waste. And then a huge part, 33 of them. So if you're using the analogy, if we have 100 bottles, 33 of these bottles get disposed to either to dump sites or to landfills. Now a bigger number, 35, is being leaked to the environment, meaning it ends up in our rivers, in our esteros, and even in or directly to the sea, or sometimes on land, but which eventually would end up in some body of water. So in numbers, that's 35% of 2.1 million. That's around 750,000 tons of plastics that are ending up in the environment. If we want to imagine that, that's an equivalent of 15 ships. So that's a huge amount. Okay, so 16, if we go back to the analogy of the bottles, that's 16 bottles are being stored and in use, like we reuse in our homes. It doesn't get released. Okay, next slide, please. So what is our infrastructure for solid waste management? Our collection efficiency is varying across the country. There's a low of 30% up to a high of 99%, which is concentrated in urban areas like Metro Manila. So that's also slow. That's a low efficient collection rate. We estimate on a national level, maybe it's around 45% of our waste. Only 45% of our waste are being collected. And so our wastes are supposed to be segregated if you want to do segregation and extraction of valuable materials. We do it in material recovery facilities. And we're supposed to have, all barangays are supposed to have one each, or should have access to an MRF. So right now we only have 33% of our barangays which have access to these MRFs. And then the residual waste are supposed to be thrown in the landfills, and we also lack landfills. We only have 191 of them, so that's only 11% of the total required number. Okay, so that partly explains our situation for solid waste management. Next slide, please. The next slide would talk about the regulations that we have. For the general solid waste management, we know that we have the mother law is RA 9003, the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act. But specifically for plastics, we have cities and municipalities have their own ordinances, and 30% of them have come up with this: no sandbags, no single-use plastic, or no straw. So in Metro Manila, we have 13 out of the 17 LGUs which have plastic ordinances. Next slide, please. So next, we talk about the added challenges of this pandemic. I think Sanjin very well explained it a little earlier. With a with the pandemic, we have an increase of PPE waste, those materials that our frontliners have to use to protect themselves. So you have disposable gloves, masks, gowns, so all of this. And also, we get a lot of additional plastic bags because relief goods are delivered or carried through these plastic bags. Also, when going grocery shopping, we're being discouraged in general. Right now, we're being discouraged to use reusable containers, no, to avoid infection. And so, next slide, please. Okay, so what does this mean? No? So we saw that we have so much of our plastics just being disposed and leaked. So because of this pandemic, that's additional challenge. So it's highly probable that there will be an increase, of course, of plastic that is being disposed and leaked to the environment. That is, if we do not improve our waste management system, and also if we do not come up with alternative materials to all this disposable packaging that we are using right now. That's all. So thank you. I'll be happy to answer your questions later. Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you so much, Dr. Tonette, for sharing that very, very fresh data and information to all of us here. I hope the viewers can have extra appreciation on what Dr. Tonette just shared. If you have any questions for her, please do put it on the comment section of the live stream. We'd be happy to address it later on, especially if we have time. Of course, while that is insightful, Dr. Tonette, I do understand that plastic is not the root of the problem of all of this. Instead, it's the way we consume and manage plastic in our day-to-day behavior and activities. For this part, I would like to call on Anna. And if you could shed some light on this matter, particularly, can you tell us about the ways to achieve circularity on the plastic issue?
Okay, thanks, Angie. I like how you raise that plastic isn't really the root of the problem, because I think the environmental movement, and I'm part of this, we've created this like enemy of plastics when actually plastic is really useful. When you think about, let's say, all the plastics you've touched in the last week, you'll count your phone, your laptop, your credit card or ATM card, your personal care product. I mean, all of these things are made of plastic. So there are really good uses to this, but what makes it problematic is how, not just how we've consumed and how we've managed plastics, but also how it's been designed. So plastic isn't designed to be reused or recycled or recreated into other objects. So when we look at this slide, you see three types of systems. We have the linear economy, which is mostly what the world is operating on. Things are designed just to be thrown away, and you can't even repair them or reuse them. And then the second one is the recycling economy, where recyclables like bottles and cans are brought to facilities where they can be processed. But it's important to note that right now, not everything is designed to be recycled. And even if there are things that are designed to be recycled, not everything is collected and then processed for recycling. And then there's the last one, which is the circular economy, where we've designed waste out of the system. So business models and services and things are designed to be reused and recreated. To achieve this, industries and businesses have to talk to each other so that whatever the waste is of one industry, if they really can't avoid having waste, can be a resource for another industry. So one example in the Philippines is the pineapple agriculture. industry. So there was one entrepreneur who saw that there was a lot of waste from the leaves of the pineapples, and then she realized that they could be turned into vegan leather. So now this business is called Piña Text. So the next slide, you'll see what we call the hierarchy of waste. This one, yeah, the hierarchy of needs. And this is how we as consumers and entrepreneurs and individuals can be part of the circular economy. And this is something that I also struggle with kasi masarap pag-shopping minsan, di ba? Masaya. But then we're also adding to the waste that we see in landfills and in the environment. So this hierarchy just shows na yung first step is to use what you have, and then borrow, swap, thrift, make, and then the last one should be buying new things so that we reduce the resources being used. And then I'm going to end with this diagram in the next slide. It says climate mood flow chart, but this is actually applicable to any development issue. And this time I'm using it for circular economy or waste management, because the path to a circular economy is really overwhelming. There are so many gaps in the Philippines and all over the world in terms of the things we need to do to accelerate the transition. But I hope it reminds us that whether we're feeling hopeful or hopeless, we have the capacity to do something about the situation that we're in, whether it's to reuse things or swap, buy, or engage governments and businesses and other sectors to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna, for sharing. It's good to know that you know, even people like you and organizations would think that plastic is not the enemy. It's actually our behavior towards plastics. And now that we know that, you know, there are certain systems that we need to understand about our usage of plastic, and that more importantly, at least my takeaway would be individuals have a part in doing something, and making sure that we do our part in this whole crisis for plastic waste management. I'd like to direct the discussion now on social innovation. With this, I would like to call on Zarina of WWF. Maybe you can tell us more about the Plastic Smart Cities program, and how innovation is important in addressing the plastic pollution issue.
Okay, so can I see the slide, please? Is it there? Okay, good evening, everyone. So I will give you like an overview of what the Worldwide Fund for Nature does and how we see the plastics issue. So what the network did, we are present in at least 100 countries. And what we did is we looked at the plastic issue in its entire life cycle. So from plastic production to secondary markets. And we studied who are the stakeholders in each phase, and what are the gaps in every phase, so that we can address it and in its entire life cycle. So we saw WWF see the plastics issue as a systemic problem, which requires a systemic and comprehensive solution. So as you can see in the diagram below, is at the heart of the No Plastic in Nature initiative, which is the name of our initiative, with the goal or with the vision of having no plastic in nature by 2030. At the heart of heart of this initiative is innovation. Why innovation? Because we believe that innovation is very important, or is like a driving factor in generating solutions so that we can address like this plastic pollution issue. So we see that the network sees that we need to work with policymakers, we need to work with businesses, cities, and citizens to bring about like the shift to sustainable sources of plastics, the reduction of like unnecessary plastics, global recovery, reuse, and recycling. So these are the things that we really need to address. And innovation is really one of the interventions or one of the driving factors for us to reach those objectives. So we see innovation as something like bringing newness on how we approach or how we see the policies in terms of addressing plastic pollution. And also, it applies to what Anna mentioned a while ago, and how we can redesign our consumption and how can we improve waste management. So I remember that during the Manila Hackathon, I had the privilege to share this a speech wherein I really mentioned that the Philippines is very fortunate to have like a great talent capital that we really need to harness to really generate the innovations, innovative solutions for plastic pollution. So next slide, please. So in the Philippines, just to give you like a brief background of what we do here, our direction is to work in different pillars. So we work with the national government for supporting the global treaty on marine pollution. And we also work with the national government and work with the business and other stakeholders for pushing extended producer responsibility, from which AMH Philippines, led by Doc Angeline, helped us develop the diagram she presented a while ago. That is part of the materials flow analysis that they did for the EPR study that hopefully will be launched anytime soon. We are also working with businesses to make and implement public commitments so that they can really reduce unnecessary plastics and maybe add more commitments on how they can make their business operations circular. And also, we through the Ayoko ng Plastic movement, we work with citizens and really raise this awareness of this particular issue. So next slide, please. I want to put emphasis on the plastic smart cities, from which this event is a part of. So the Plastic Smart Cities project, it is a global movement of cities and tourism destinations to achieve 100% plastic waste diversion by 2030. So with this, one of the interventions that WWF identified is identifying and scaling entrepreneurial solutions. So for the Philippine team, we partnered with the driven team of Make Sense and Exchange to generate entrepreneurial solutions to address plastic pollution. So I think we started last September, wherein we launched the online call of proposals to the Manila and Davao hackathons. And then in last November, we did the hackathons wherein brilliant ideas have been developed and mentored by the great influencers in the community, including Anna Oposa, who we are also fortunate to have in this event. I can also remember mentoring a number of shortlisted ideas, including some of the solutions to be featured tonight. I'm so excited, which have been selected by a great panel that really battled it out to trim all the ideas to this amazing five. So congratulations from WWF. And WWF is really happy to provide this platform for new and innovative ideas to be discovered. So this five that we will be featuring tonight will definitely be the first batch that we will be launching. So for all the people that are watching right now, para a show. If you have been part of this selection journey, or if you already pitch your idea to this particular Plastic Smart Cities project with Make Sense and Exchange, or you just had an idea yesterday or this morning on an entrepreneurial idea that you want to pitch because you think that this will address the plastics issue, please feel free to reach out to Make Sense Exchange or to WWF Philippines so that we can build on this startup community for stopping plastic waste leakage in nature by 2030. Because at the end of the day, it is when we really work responsibly together that anything is possible. As we always say in WWF, together responsible, together possible. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Zarina. It's always very comforting to know that organizations such as WWF and of course, Save the Philippines Seas and AMH actually does a lot of things to help us understand this issue even further and also give us some guidelines on how we can help solve the problem. Um, I know that I was about to ask the speakers to give us a few takeaways about plastic waste management and how each of the individuals watching us today, and also those who will be watching the live stream on replay on their own time. But in lieu of that, I would like to ask a couple of questions instead, because there are so many on the Facebook live stream now. The first question is from Ivy. So, given the rising use of plastics due to health concerns, how do we reconcile the balance between reusables and disposables if we cannot avoid disposable gloves, face masks, and the like? Maybe I can ask Anna for this, and maybe Dr. Tunette would have something to follow as well.
Yeah, that's a really good question and something that I've been thinking about a lot. I think for medical waste, there's no way we should compromise safety and hygiene and health. So for, surgical gloves and other medical equipment, we should never ever compromise the health of the patients. But for other things, like for example, if you've seen the new normal bill, which was filed in the Congress maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I can't even keep track anymore. But one of the provisions there is that all menus of all restaurants should be disposable. I think that's unnecessary because there are innovations we can take advantage of, like maybe putting bigger signs inside the restaurant, or if you have a mobile phone, then you can use your mobile phone to pull up the the menu. So I think we really have to be discerning on what is necessary and what is not. And we can't just keep making it an excuse, because in the end, if we keep promoting disposables, like disposable bags, we're offsetting the gains that the environmental movement has worked so hard on in terms of reducing the volume of plastics in the ocean and in the environment and in the landfills. Yep, that's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Anna. We have a few more questions that I would like to direct. Sorry, we have a lot of questions on the live stream. We will make time to answer them later on, maybe during or after the stream on the comment section itself. But for now, I would like to ask a question to Zarina. Zarina, um, if you may share with us, what is your stand with regards to incineration of plastic with energy recovery as a solution to plastic pollution?
Hello. So WWF, the stand of WWF is we are not supporting any type of incineration because we think these are not circular solutions. So for the No Plastic in Nature initiative, what we promote are circular solutions that we think will really help address the plastic problem in the Philippines. So yeah.
That is very succinct of an answer, but very insightful. Thank you so much, Zarina. And it makes a good point. Because of the solution not being a circular solution, it's good to know that WWF as an organization does not support it. I have time for one last question, and if Dr. Tunette could take this, please. We have a question from Facebook. It says, "How can we, or how can we enforce the current Solid Waste Management Act? Maybe if there was a way for us to encourage or put some pressure on the government. Do you have any thoughts on this, Dr. Tunette?"
Yeah, it's a difficult, maybe easy to answer, but difficult to do. We know that the solid waste management is in the hands of the local government unit. So we should support, we should demand good governance. I think good governance is key in all aspects, so including solid waste management. We should support and collaborate with local governments. They need help technically and resources wise. So there are, we should support them and as citizens also make our voices heard if we see something that we do not agree with. We should be more active in governance also, even as ordinary citizens.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tunette. I would like to echo what Dr. Tunette just said. It's that there's no action that's too small, no voice that is too soft for this movement. And if there's anything that we would like to fight for, especially if it's for the governance of our environmental rules, it would be good to be active and remain vigilant about this. I am really sorry. I know that there's so many questions left on the stream. We'd love to answer all of them later on, but at this point, I would like to thank our panelists, Dr. Tanet, Anna Oposa, and Zarina of WWF, so that we can move on to the next part of the program. But thank you so much, ladies, for being with us here and sharing your insights. Very much
Thank
appreciated.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right, and with that, I would like to give the mic back to Sandrine.
All right. Thank you so much, Angeli, for facilitating this discussion. And of course, thank you to our speakers. I think we in the audience definitely caught up on a lot of important points. I think it's definitely something important to be aware, for example, of the way that waste is being managed right now, and then in turn find out what kind of solutions can be implemented to respond to this. So Anna mentioned, for example, the circular economy, to make sure that waste doesn't just end up as waste, but can be reused as a valuable product, and so that it doesn't end up in landfills and oceans, etc. And of course, maybe this is where social innovation can really come in to answer some of these challenges. And this makes for a very good transition to our next activity. Right now, we're going to be introducing our 5 entrepreneurs that have made it to the academy. So they're all people who have made it their goal right now to really, find a solution to the issue of plastic waste using different manners. So tonight we're going to have Bioplastic, Refill on the Road, Kloop, Atoani, and Audio share with us their personal journey. Again, if you guys have any questions, you can send them in the comment section of the live stream, and we'll do our best to take some of these questions and answer them at the end of this storytelling part for the Q&A. So you guys know the drill. We're going to introduce them now, and I want you to flood the stream with live reactions, hearts and likes, etc. And again, Angeli, I'm going to give the mic back to you so you can ask our entrepreneurs 2 questions that will allow the audience to know more about the story. Angeli, you can begin when you're ready.
All right. Thank you so much, Sandrine. I am super excited to introduce to you the 5 teams that we have on board now for the 3rd batch of Make Sense Academy. When Zarina said that the teams had to battle it out during the online jury that we had almost a month, well, more than a month ago, it was true. Like, it was a bit it was exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time, but it is my great pleasure to introduce the 5 to you, starting with the startup who is trying to bring back the tackle habit for the Filipinos. I would like to introduce Krisha and Donna of Refill on the Road. If you could turn on your mics and videos, please, ladies. All right. Krisha, Donna, maybe we can begin by you telling us a bit about who you are and how you got started with solving the issue of plastic waste management here in the Philippines.
So, good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Krisha, and I'm the co-founder and CEO for Refill on the Road. And just to share about myself, I think it was way back 4 years ago when I started knowing about the plastic problem, not just in the Philippines, but in the whole world. And it's from a film viewing that I joined. The documentary that they've shown is actually called The Plastic Ocean. And it's when I saw the problem where the plastics are actually thrown in the ocean. So we thought that it's just in the landfill, but it ends up in the oceans, and I feel really bad about it. And I actually saw the fishes are dying because of it. And moreover, when we started with Refill on the Road, we found out that we Filipinos alone, we actually throw away 163 million single-use plastic sachets every day. So it's really a big number. And it was just when I became a new mom just last year that I really felt that I need to act on this, because personally I'd want to live my child in a sustainable world. And also with the issue and the microplastics in the ocean, it actually poses a great health risk for everyone.
Hi everyone, my name is Donna and I am co-founder also and chief creative officer for Refill on the Road. So my journey started, let me start with, in 2011, I came back home to the Philippines. I'm actually balikbayan. So I grew up on a small island and in our main road, it's actually in front of a beach. So visible yung ocean water. So we really like to keep it clean. So when I came back home here, I was so surprised and I was so frustrated even to see trash on the street. So I actually come from the entertainment industry, but on my free time, I would try to learn about the problem, the plastic problem as well. And that's when I came across the zero waste movement and their advocates that are actually, spearheading the movement. But coming from the entertainment industry, I had so much to learn about waste management. So I tried to learn from actually one of our co-founders. His name is Jonas, about it. And I started going to a lot of talks about waste. And that's when I met Krisha at the Plastic Smart Cities Hackathon. And we actually shared the same vision of refilling and reducing waste in general. So I joined her team. So it's pretty cool because she's actually more of the technical, functional side of the product, and I'm more of the aesthetics and the brand.
All right, it's good to know that the challenge on plastic waste management and how we treat plastic in our daily life is something that's very close and personal to both of you, and it seems like to the rest of the founding team. Now, I would like to ask you directly about your startup. Tell us a bit about the how Refill on the Road is solving the challenge that you just mentioned.
So you mentioned about challenges. Before that, actually, I'd want to share that there is actually a great market or demand for this sustainable and specifically refillable products right now. But the challenge is that manufacturers or big companies are not refilling ready, as I may say. So maybe I could share about Refill on the Road. So we offer practical, accessible, and affordable refills sold by the gram for your staple goods, personal, and home care products. And so say you want to order spices. So when I say spices, the ones that you use in your kitchen, and think about your regular chili flakes, for example. And when you buy it right now in the grocery stores, it actually comes in single-use plastic packaging. And what we want to introduce to everyone are reusable containers. And you could actually put your spices there, or in the future, we will actually have coffee and other staple goods that you need. And later on, after some time, when you run out of those spices, we can either refill your own container or swap with another. And actually, as a social enterprise, we actively listen to you, our customers, and we try to understand what you need and what you want us to offer, and what kind of products that you like to buy in refillable. And actually, right now, due to COVID problem, we actually listen to you, and we're currently offering fresh produce plus also our spices right now. So you could actually check out our Facebook page to buy some. We just actually had our cut off, so hopefully you could fill up the order form next week. And going back to the manufacturer problem that I've mentioned, we currently solve it by onboarding SMEs, so small to medium enterprises, which are flexible and lean, who can accommodate us and actually explore the refilling and let us buy stuff from them in bulk. And right now, we offer our own product, which is unbranded, so something like refill.
Yeah, so like what Krisha said, we really like to adjust to customer need, and so we like to adjust continuously. And the vision for Refill on the Road really is to redesign the whole grocery experience from a linear system into a circular economy. And the idea may still develop as we go along, so that's why we really are open to collaborating in creating solutions. So we're looking for people, orgs, or brands who share the vision of finding alternative ways to design products with reusable or recyclable packaging. And we want to share the mission of actually bringing back the tackle habit in the Philippines to reduce the dependency on single-use plastics. So with this, we hope to get everyone involved to improve the quality of life of Filipinos one refill at a time.
Thank you so much, ladies. Donna and Krisha, it's really cool to hear about your advocacy and how you've turned that into a solution that you're currently testing out. And for those who are curious about Refill on the Road, you can ask the presenters, Krisha and Donna, about it on the Facebook live stream. And also, you can get to meet them at the networking part later on tonight. But thank you so much, ladies. I would have to go on and move to our next team, a startup that produces and distributes biodegradable packaging made from sugarcane bagasse that helps reduce reliance on plastic and reduce agro-industrial waste at the same time. For that, we have Wilvi and Jonah, if I'm not mistaken, there as well. Okay. Ladies, if you could tell us a bit about yourselves and how you stumbled upon this challenge and what it means to you.
Okay, so hi, I'm Maria Wilvena Nyora, or Wilby, a co-founder and head of strategy and product development for Ataani Biopack.
And I'm
Here
Jo, co-founder and head of partner collaborations. So one of the reasons that triggered us to tackle the issue in plastic waste is the recurrent problem of flooding that we have personally experienced way back in elementary days, even until now. In fact, even when the rain is not that heavy, in some areas which we pass going to work or going somewhere, we still experience flooding. And so much more flooding when we have heavy rain that it's difficult to pass by some areas. And this is not new. Other areas in the Philippines have similar or even more drastic experience. But despite knowing that plastic is a major contributor to this flooding, people just continue to use more of it, which is very alarming and sad. In addition, we had an experience way back where some of our neighbors burned their plastic waste, which is unhealthy and somehow toxic, not only for them but also for the people who pass by their area, including us. It contributes to air pollution, which is toxic to one's health or to our health. And it is because of these personal experiences that we really wanted to do something in addressing the issue in plastic waste.
Okay, so in addition to what John has mentioned about flooding and plastic pollution, which we should really serve as a constant reminder for ourselves that something must be done, in our team, we do advocate for sustainability as well. So, in fact, this is what drives our sister venture, Ato Ani, which implements sustainable farming practices. So, we deliver fresh produce straight to our customers, so there's no need for packaging. Also, for our products like Malunggay coffee, we make use of reusable craft paper stand-up pouches, which minimize the need for single-use plastic and is also less harmful to the environment. But not everyone is an environmentalist. In fact, for some of our customers, they still prefer that we use plastic pouches. So most people still could not omit the habit of using single-use plastic, as what Krisha has mentioned a while ago, about 163 million pieces of single-use sachets that are thrown to the environment daily in the Philippines. Well, this can be because between practicality and saving the environment, reality is most people will still go for practicality. And if you would just observe, majority of the manufacturers in the country are still using plastic in most of our products for packaging. And I guess one of the reasons plastic is readily available in the market. And second, it is way cheaper compared to other packaging types, which I can attest having to personally select and source our packaging for Ato Ani's products, as I have mentioned earlier. So, yes, I admit that our packaging choice did hurt us a bit in terms of cost, but I guess we made this choice because we wanted to stand up for something that is sustainable and that would be good for the environment, because that is what we believe in. And we know that what we do in our agriculture venture, it's just a small effort as compared to the bigger plastic problem that our country is facing, because we represent just a very small percentage in the number of packaging users in the country. So that is why we know that something more must be done, particularly in the area of producing more environmentally friendly packaging to really address this issue in plastic waste.
Thank you so much for sharing your context, Jonah and Wilvi. I think I could attest that me living in the province when I was a kid, I could definitely look back and have vivid memories of neighbors burning trash, including plastics, and it's just crazy. And what's funny is that we also have a rice farm at the back of our house, and sometimes they would also burn their agro waste. And now hearing from you and from Wilvi and Jonah that you're solving two problems at the same time, which is reducing agro waste and using that as a sustainable way, sustainable packaging as an alternative to plastic. It's very interesting. I would like to know more about your project if you don't mind, and what makes it unique.
Okay. So it so I will share how Ate Ani was born. So Ate Ani was born out of our commitment to our advocacy for state sustainability. As I mentioned, may it be in agriculture or in the packaging that we use for our products. So we wanted to venture into more environmentally friendly packaging, producing this one. So with this line of thought, we know that to be able to create something that is good for the environment, the raw materials for this packaging should also come from the environment. So this challenge to search for this raw material triggered a memory back in university days when I went to a sugar manufacturing facility in Cebu to get some samples for our chemical engineering project about using sugarcane bagasse for enzyme production. So, sugarcane bagasse is an agri-industrial waste that is left after sugar production. So piles and mounds of these are just discarded as waste and left outside the main factory. So if you put it into numbers, just to visualize the extent of it, we currently have 82,800 tons of sugarcane bagasse that is wasted daily in the Philippines alone. And this what made us decide to use this as a raw material. And this is what we're looking for, since it comes from the environment, it is biodegradable, it is considered waste. So we can help in addressing the agro-industrial waste problem in the country. And of course, its properties are suitable for creating a biodegradable packaging. So with all this, the challenge of finding a suitable raw material was already addressed on our side.
So based on what my sister has mentioned, at Tatuani Biopack, we make use of sugarcane bagasse waste from sugar manufacturers as a raw materials in making biodegradable paper packaging to help reduce reliance on plastic. And for the production, we collaborate with paper manufacturers. And with this, our overall vision is to make Atoani Biopack biodegradable packaging become a significant player in reducing plastic and agro-industrial waste. Yes, we started with sugarcane bagasse, but we will not stop here. In the future, we will venture into other agricultural waste, which are also abundant in the Philippines. But we know that even if we can produce a biodegradable packaging from agro-industrial waste, that we are able to scale it with the help of the partner manufacturers, such that we can bring down the cost to a level that can compete with plastic packaging. The greater challenge for us is to change the mindset of the majority of the people to switch from using plastic to using biodegradable packaging. And with this, we hope that we all spread awareness and make use of sustainable packaging a new norm to help reduce plastic waste and agro-industrial waste, which are the two problems that we are addressing with Ato Ani Baypa.
Thank you so much, Jonna. Thank you so much, Wilby. It's interesting to get to know more about your product. I'm personally excited to learn more about how exactly it's going to be manufactured, how it compares in terms of quality, and also um, the price point. As you said, a lot of people are still very much leaning towards practicality and ease in terms of consumer choices. So for those who are also just as curious as me, you can ask your questions on the stream. Perhaps either Jonna or Wilby can answer it for us. But for now, I would like to thank you, ladies, again for sharing about Ato Ani Bayupak. More power to you guys. I would like to introduce our third team, Glenn of Kloop. We are introducing the startup who set up plastic recycling micro enterprises in underprivileged communities so that they can transform the plastic waste into high value products, giving and breathing new life to plastic waste that we usually ignore and take for granted. Glenn, if you could turn on your mic, your video, and tell us a bit about you and Clue, how you incepted this idea.
Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here. So hi everyone, my name is Glenn. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Kloop. So I'll be talking a bit about my own personal experiences, how this all led to focusing on the plastic waste problem and ultimately how this led to creating a social and environmental startup. So, going through college, I developed interest in two things. So the first would be in science and technology. So I'm taking my undergrad in materials engineering at UP Diliman. And I was able to see firsthand the importance of really cutting edge research and human centered design to really drive innovations and technologies. So that's one thing that was super interesting to me. And the second would be the passion for service, especially for communities in need. So throughout high school and college, I was active in student councils and student organizations, and I was able to go through different immersions to poor communities and orphanages and really seeing firsthand their experiences and what it's like for them. And going through college, these two things were not like completely separate aspects of myself. I couldn't focus on one, both of them at the time. I would have to choose one. So the turning point came as when I met one of my mentors, my professor, Ma'am Jill Manapat, and she introduced to me the idea of humanitarian engineering, really developing technologies that are particularly designed to help underserved communities. And hearing about this idea, it just all clicked. I felt a strong sense of purpose, like this is something that I really wanted to devote my life to doing. So since that day, I tried to learn as much as possible I can about it. So I tried to read books, I listened to podcasts, and really building a skill set in social entrepreneurship. And you're probably wondering at this point where plastic waste enters into all this. So here it is. So I was able to put all I learned in this into action by working with the urban poor community in Payatas as part of my thesis. So for those of you familiar with Payatas, it's a dump site. You can really see the mountains of garbage in the scavenger communities that are there. And it was a really sobering experience, to say the least, because I was able to see firsthand how embedded plastic waste really is in our daily lives, through sachet plastics, plastic bags, and all different types of packaging. And for a lot of us, once we deal with plastic waste, once it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And being able to go to Payatas, I was really confronted with the issue of plastic waste, and it's something you just can't afford to ignore anymore. It's way too big to just ignore. And one of the other key insights I got was that a lot of people really live day to day, and from waste scavenging, they don't really earn a lot to support their families. So thinking about all these insights and experiences through Payatas, this was all in the back of my mind. It's really just percolating, and I would remember something my mom would tell me when driving me to school. So she'd be driving, and then on the streets we'd see a lot of plastic litter in sachets and plastic bags and the like, and then she'd tell me, "Anak, you're an engineer, right? Why don't you find the way to turn this plastic waste into something good?" And that's where I saw it, There really is an opportunity in plastic waste and really trying to create value from it. And so that's the key question of really what got me into this issue of plastic waste. How can we really create these new opportunities for communities in need through plastic waste. And the things I really wanted to focus on here was, plastic is more than just an environmental issue. There's also a social aspect that needs to be addressed when dealing with these problems. So that's how I got into plastic waste, and really why I really wanted to focus on the issue, to really create social and environmental impact.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Glenn. I love that your mom sort of had a cameo in this presentation, but moms know best. And hello again to all of the moms out there. Belated Happy Mother's Day to everyone. But thank you for sharing, Glenn. And I love the fact that she was one of the people that inspired you to really move towards humanitarian engineering, as I picked up from you. I would like to know more about Kloop. I'm sure as the audience as well would. If you could tell us a bit more about how it works, what makes the project unique?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So, as I said, the plastic waste problem has really two big aspects, the environmental side and the social aspect side. So I really shared these insights with my professor, and she was able to connect me to a lot of like-minded people. So other professors, other students, and a lot of these people would really mentor us, and some of them would even be the founding team members of Kloop. So we were able to develop this all engineering team. Most of us are engineers, and it's not surprising we came up with an engineering solution, something that's very technical. And the thing we looked at was in upcycling, transforming low-value waste into high-value products. And that's the key idea we really wanted to focus on, was how can we make plastics upcycling technology really accessible to those communities in need. And so that got us doing a bit of research and fieldwork. So we saw that there's these two sectors that are deeply affected by plastic waste. So on one side, we have these urban poor communities. So aside from Payatas, we look at communities in Malabon and Pasig. And we find that these people are on the front lines of plastic waste. They're experienced with plastic waste management and segregation. And the problem was, even though they were skilled in this, they lacked a lot of income opportunities. Waste scavengers really bring a lot of money, and it's not enough to sustain their family. So that's the problem we saw with the urban poor communities. And on the other hand, we have these large organizations, like businesses, government institutions, and we started working with the Pasig City LGU, and we started doing interviews with different business owners, and we found that for them, plastic waste management is a hassle. It's very labor intensive, and a lot of times it's not even a priority. So we have here these two sectors, the urban poor communities and the large organizations. They're both dealing with plastic waste. And I wanted to think, what if we could bridge these two together into one solution to really create both social and environmental impact? And it's this idea, this core idea, that brought together a group of young engineering students to start Kloop, because you really wanted to close the loop on plastic waste. And that's where we get the name Kloop, closing the loop. And the way we wanted to drive this idea and this vision was to really create these things called Kloop centers, these community spaces equipped with plastic recycling technology. So where residents from these communities in need can earn through recycling plastic waste. So, this all plays into the business model that I'm presenting here in this slide, So the organizations, they provide a steady supply of plastic waste to the community. The communities then transform the waste into high-value products using the Kloop Center. And the products are then sold back to these organizations. So it's a win-win for both parties, because the communities, they're able to have an additional source of income. That means more money they can spend towards food, education, medicine, and the like. And for organizations, they can find a way to finally recycle plastic into new products and really create that story of environmental and social impact without dealing with all the additional hassle that they're normally dealing with now. And so as a whole, for this business model, we're really creating this idea of localized circular economies. It's something that's really coming up throughout this whole webinar. This idea that we're really trying to take it in its most literal sense. And our big vision for these Kloop centers is to develop these recycling ecosystems across communities in need all over the Philippines as a way to divert plastic waste from landfills and to provide livelihood opportunities, especially to communities in need like the urban poor. We're super excited to be on this journey, and we want to connect with people who are just as passionate about social and environmental impact as us, because it's when we work together that we can finally close the loop on plastic waste. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Glenn. I would love to know more about the project, particularly the technology that you talk about in CLOOP, the community center itself. And there are a few questions about your startup and the previous startups that presented on the Facebook live stream. We will see if we will have time at the end to address all of these questions. But for now, I would like to thank you, Glenn, for sharing about CLOOP. Okay, thank you. We are now at our 3-point mark. We have 5 teams, so 2 more to go. I hope you guys are still very much energized to go on because we have 2 exciting startups to get to know right now. But before that, I would like to remind everyone that your questions will be addressed. If not at the end of the presentations, we are currently asking the entrepreneurs and our team to be able to send all of the questions to me so that I can facilitate the Q&A later on. But for our entrepreneurs who are already on the live stream, if you could address some of the questions there on comment directly, please do so. We'd love the interaction on the live stream. And without further ado, I would like to move on to our 4th team. I would like to introduce Danielle of Odeo. It is a startup that has introduced an alternative eco-friendly building system composed of 90% upcycled plastic, which will be used for affordable, dignified housing here in the country. Danny, if you could turn on your video and mic, please, and tell us a bit about you and how you encountered this challenge that you want to solve now.
Yeah, hi everyone. So unfortunately, my video isn't actually working right now. But so I'll try to keep working, but I'm definitely able to just talk during to answer your questions.
All right, Danny, tell us a bit about you, please.
Yes, so again, my name is Danielle Roleka. I'm the president of Aldeo Manufacturing, and I'm actually originally from San Diego, California, with a background in public health. And with that, I worked with a lot of underserved communities who, focusing on implementing nutrition education and obesity prevention type of programs. But my real journey really didn't start until 2016, when my partner and I actually took a vacation trip to the Philippines. And when we arrived, we learned that in Tondo, they have something called a Smoky Mountain Tour, AKA Slum Tour. So just to give you some more background, my parents are originally from the Philippines, but I'm from the US, which is where I was born and raised. And every time I visited the Philippines, it was purely for a vacation, to visit relatives. And I seemed to notice a pattern. Everyone wanted to talk about Cebu, Coron, Boracay, all these touristy places, but no one ever wanted to talk about Tondo, the place where the poorest of the poor live, where families are making maybe 150 pesos each day. So us being curious, we wanted to learn and experience it for ourselves, drive over to Tondo and just understand what the daily lifestyle is like. What do families have to do in order to survive and feed their own children? So you could imagine when we got there, we saw a lot of these major problems. As you're walking around, you see these makeshift houses hammered together with corrugated tin, flimsy plywood, sometimes even concrete hollow blocks. Another thing you would see are a lot of these electric wires hanging at the very top, tangled together, going from one house to the house next door to the house across the street, a huge fire hazard for the people living in this area. And of course, the plastic waste and trash problem that's sitting in Tondo. Now, a lot of you viewing this probably already knows this, but Smoky Mountain is located in Tondo. It's used to be a landfill, but it was shut down by the government in the 1990s. So you would think that it's no longer being used as a dump site, but because Tondo itself doesn't have a very formal or an enforced waste management system, pretty much the residents use that as their own dump site or where they end up throwing their trash. So I asked our tour guide, what happens to all of this plastic waste and trash that's just sitting there? And her response was that Smoky Mountain has become a place for scavengers. Every day they go to the site, they find whatever recyclables they could get, and they turn it to the junk shop for a small profit. Sometimes you would see smoke going into the air, usually indicating that they're burning their trash. But most importantly, that plastic casing that goes around the copper wire, because copper is such a high commodity. And if not being scavenged, if not being burnt, this is the end of the cycle for that trash and the plastic waste. It's basically continuously accumulating, while at the same time polluting the waterways, the atmosphere, and just the general living area of the people over there. So going back to public health, me being very passionate in it, it spoke to me because one, this is terrible for the environment, but two, no one should have to live in this way. So although at this time I was still in college, my partner and I wanted to make it a priority for us to find a solution that was going to create better living conditions, while at the same time implementing some form of a waste management system. And this is pretty much the reason why I ultimately decided to move to the Philippines, while at the same time tackling on the plastic waste issue.
All right, thank you so much, Danny. It's unfortunate that we cannot see you, but
I'm very sorry about this.
it's all right. We would love to know more about Odeo in particular, and about your solution, like what makes it unique, and if you could tell us more about the project itself, please.
Sure, yeah. So again, in order to find a solution that was going to create better living conditions while also dealing and tackling on this plastic waste issue, we really had to think outside of the box. We went to our drawing board, and one of our first projects was actually in Tondo, working with the barangay leaders. And our plan was to actually build a central recycling facility. And this would allow the collaboration between the junk shops and the residents over there. And in the beginning, we actually got a lot of positive feedback. They really wanted this for themselves, for their own community. But as time passed on, we kept running into this wall where we realized with just the two of us, we bit a lot more than we could chew. Needing a lot more resources, needing more funding, needing the ability to assemble a team willing to be trained, but at the same time going out on the field to educate their own community. And as we kept, running into these issues, all these problems, we realized we had to, take a step back and understand the situation we're in, and maybe put a pause on this project and focus on a solution that wasn't just geared towards one community, but geared towards solving the plastic waste issue for the entire Philippines. Going back to Dr. Tanet's speech or presentation, she talked about all these statistics, all this plastic waste that's accumulating in the Philippines. So we could understand how it really impacts the Philippines itself. So eventually, after a lot of research, we came across this product called Bloque Plus in Colombia. Now, Bloque Plus is a Lego-like building system. It uses an interlocking method as so that you can see on the screen. And if you were to compare it with the conventional concrete hollow blocks, it actually significantly decreases in labor time. It cuts down in labor costs. It has a lot of different types of molds that addresses the plumbing and electric wiring. And the best quality of it all is that these bricks are composed of 90% upcycled plastic. So similar to how Kloop is creating something from a low value plastic waste product, turning it into a high value product, we're doing the exact same thing with these bricks. Some of those plastics being styrofoam, plastic bags, soap detergent bottles, even that plastic casing around the copper wire I was talking about earlier, we're able to use that. And the goal is to actually source these plastic wastes from the landfill directly, and then use that to form our own Bloque Plus, in turn, use that for the mass housing industry. So for every house we build, we could actually upcycle about 7 tons of plastic waste. That's plastic waste no longer going into our oceans, no longer polluting our streets, no longer emitting toxins into the air, while at the same time building these beautiful, high quality, yet very affordable houses for Filipinos. And just so you see on the screen here, these are actually past projects done in South America that we are introducing to the Philippines. And as of now, we're currently looking to collaborate with anyone in the mass housing industry, construction sector, plastic waste organizations, or if you're purely just interested to learn more, feel free to contact me. I'd be more than happy to talk further with you. But I just wanted to end it here where we believe that Bloque Plus is the future. You know, why not clean our Philippine community while at the same time providing and building these beautiful, affordable, high quality houses for Filipinos? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. It's super interesting to see your presentation and how it has been validated already and how you are going to test it here as well in the Philippine market. We'd love to know more about the project, but I'm afraid we'd have to wait until the networking session tonight. And maybe Danny can also go onto the live stream thread and address some of the questions, just in case we don't have any time to do a Q&A at the end of the presentations. But it looks like we might have some time for a couple of questions. But for now, thank you again, Danny, for presenting Odeo to everyone. I would love to call on our last, but definitely not the least, team to be presented. Jeremy of Morph Bioplastics, a social startup that is redesigning traditionally plastic-based products with 100% compostable polymer. Jeremy, if you could turn on your video and mic, please, so you could introduce yourself to us a little bit. And
Hello?
yes, hello, we can hear you. And tell us a bit about how
Yeah.
you encountered the problem.
So I can't open my video. The host, you have to disable it. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Okay. So good evening, everyone. So I'm Jeremy. Nervous a bit. I'm a researcher and a microbiologist by training. So, and for a couple of years, early on in my career, I was an educator, and I've taught biology and non-biology majors, essentially the wonders of microorganisms or their significance. So before I directly answer your question, let me just highlight two recurring observations or points. The first one is the plastic problem, as everyone has already kind of implied, is everyone's problem, right? So it's not really hard to have your own plastic problem story or relate to it. And in fact, Glenn has said at some point you can ignore it, even if you're well off. And the second one, maybe it's more relevant to me. It's that many people I know, and probably more than that, wants to help and solve the problem. But the problem is, the further problem is, they sometimes they feel helpless. Right? So at the point that they become indifferent or desensitized. So as I said, I was actually part of that group, especially when I was younger. But I guess the transition for me, the transition period was when I lived in Germany for 6 years. So I continued my research there. But it's just different when you live in a place, especially in Europe, especially Germany, that has this reputation and lifestyle of being green. All right. So there's actually a joke in Germany that a German's pastime is recycling. So it's a bit funny, but as stereotypes go, there's some truth to it. And you can look up more current stats, but there was a point that Germany has a recycling rate of up to 97% for their PET bottles, so for your PET bottles. So that's really high, no? If we compare it to the 9% that was shown to us earlier. And another thing that we can observe is that they have rainbow colored trash bins in every street. Okay, so most of the time, malilito ka na, you'll get confused. So they probably have 5 or 6 trash bins, different trash bins for segregation. And bottles alone, they have 3 trash bins, and depending on the color. It can be green, brown, or just colorless. And they have a separate bin for old clothes. Okay, so they account for that as well. So as a whole, in general, that experience, that 6 years, helped me slowly decide that, okay, if this place, if the people here actually do something about it, sometimes unconsciously because it's their lifestyle already, then I can, using what I know, I can do something meaningful also for my country. But also to balance that, it wasn't linear that, okay, a light bulb went into my head or lit up in my head, and then okay, I'll go back and then do this, and it was, of course there's some hesitation and doubt as well, but essentially that's how I came about to tackling the problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeremy. You have to help us a bit about understanding your solution because it's definitely a bit more technical than
Yeah.
what I'm used to. You know, like for example, what is a polymer? What do you mean by
Yeah.
100% composable, etc., and things like this. So by just to put the question more succinctly, can you tell us a bit more about
Mhm.
how it works? What is your project exactly, and what makes it unique?
All right. So just to give a little context, no, it was an idea that has been brewing up in my head since before I went back. But when I went back, it's not immediately, no. But I encountered the Plastic Smart Cities program, and it was just a good platform for me personally because I met there people with the same mindset and the same goal. So just to give you so that's when essentially the Morph by Plastic project concept was solidified. So just to briefly explain to you the process. So let's show my slide. Anjali? Yeah. All right. So the Morph by Plastic project is essentially about redesigning. So as Danny said, no, we had to think outside of the box. So it's about redesigning how traditionally synthetic based plastics are made. Okay. So our approach is that we'll be using bacterially produced or microbe based polymer. So a polymer is just a sequence of the same molecule. Okay, so even your DNA, for example, is a polymer because it's a sequence of the same polymer or proteins. So plastics themselves are polymers because, like, let's say polyethylene. So it's just a sequence of ethylene. So it's a branched ethylene, huge polymer. Okay. So if you look at the left panel at the top, so that's bacteria with white granules inside. So that's what we'll be naming as the morph bioplastic. So the white substances that you can see they're food. So just imagine when you're stressed, like for example now, we tend to hoard food when we're in stress, when we're panicking. It's the same with organisms with bacteria. So when they're feeling stress, they may store food inside their cells. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to extract that food or polymer, the white one inside, and then eventually convert them into pellets. Or they can even just be powder. But we want to convert them into pellets so that we can eventually sell them to plastic manufacturers. Okay. So, and they can use it to continue producing their products. So, like for example, the plastic tray, the bottom picture. So, they can continue making the same products, but using a sustainable and biodegradable polymer. All right. And then just to complete the loop, at the end of the life of the product, it can degrade in a landfill, it can degrade at home in your compost soil, or surprisingly, it can actually degrade under the water. Okay? Because why? You may ask why. Because if you recall, the polymer is the bacteria's food. All right. So anywhere that you have bacteria, which is actually everywhere, and then you let them have good conditions there, so they will just eat up the polymer. All right. So that's practically how we envision the cycle going. And what's unique about it is, as I said, as I mentioned, it's microbial based. So it saves resources, like land, water, etc. And it's completely versatile because the one that's making the product is the bacteria. All right, so they can be creative in doing that. But me as a microbiologist, I'll be directing them to do it. But it's very versatile. It's not only limited to bottles or packaging or films or foils. It can be used as tubes, as pipes, replacing PVC as well. Polyester fibers. Eventually, we can use it as a thread, and we can eventually, further on in the future, we can probably look at high value niche products like toys or prosthetics or even automobile parts, maybe anything that can be made with plastic or from plastic. So our concept, our project essentially imagines that plastic or the morph by plastic is plastic that the way nature intended it to be. All right. So coming from nature and going back to nature. That's it.
Jeremy, listening to you, it sounds like I'm listening to my chemistry slash biology professor all of a sudden. Thank you so much for refreshing all of those information in our heads. I'm sure we all heard that when we were in elementary or high school, guys. But thank you so much, Jeremy, for sharing
Yeah.
about morph bioplastic and how it can be used to reimagine um, our consumption, almost quite literally, about with plastics. I know that there are a lot of questions from the audience, and we'd love to know more about you and your startup, Jeremy, as with the rest of the 5 teams that we've met today. So please do tune in still until the networking part, and still send your questions in on the live stream. We will have time to address them later on, if not during the event. Thank you again so much, Jeremy. Um, Personally, I enjoyed all of the presentations today. It's such a shame that we don't have enough time, and we would love to interact with you more and have you get to know the teams, the 5 teams more. No, but um, our commitment to you is that we will end on time as well. So while the teams are already addressing the questions on the comment section of the live stream, we ask you to look forward to the networking session that will be happening in a bit. But for now, I would love to give the mic back to Sandrine for the next portion of the event.
All right, thank you so much, Angeli, for facilitating. And of course, thank you to the 5 teams. Super happy that you guys were able to make it today. You guys on subject, and you guys have all different and very personal reasons to be working on this. And it's also very nice to see that all of your ideas are fairly different, and it really shows how you can have different types of social innovation in creating a very diverse set of solutions that tackle plastic waste. So guys, we're nearing the end of our event, and now I want to invite Greg Morel Perez, who is the director of Exchange, to close off the event with some last words. Greg will be talking to us about how social innovation is super important in creating such solutions like the ones that we just talked about. So again, once Greg arrives, I want you guys to flood the stream with heart reactions, whatever you want. And Angeli, I'm going to give the mic back to you actually, because you're the one asking her the 2 questions to wrap up the team. So again, thank you guys for joining, and we'll be done in around 15 minutes. All right, back to you, Angeli.
Right. Thank you so much, Sandrine. I'm sure the viewers out there did not expect a lot of my FaceTime right now, but well, unfortunately or fortunately, you're seeing a lot more of me because we are talking about Plastic Smart Cities, which is part of the Make Sense Academy Batch 3. Greg, I'm super happy that you are here with us. Can you turn on your mic and video, please, so you can say hi to our viewers?
Hi, can you see me?
Hello.
Is it
Yes.
on
Yeah.
already? Hi,
Yeah.
okay, because I can only see the slide.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Angeli, Sandrine. Congrats, the whole Make Sense team, WWF. I'm so happy to be here. representing an exchange, and we're so happy to be a partner of WWF and Make Sense in this initiative. And as highlighted throughout the whole panel, throughout the whole webinar, plastic waste is really one of the critical issues, especially today being in quarantine. And there is really a real danger that people will disregard the plastics issue as convenience, trumps everything else. So it's very important that we hold space like this, raise awareness, have conversations around addressing the issue. As Jeremy mentioned, the issues can be overwhelming, where to start. My efforts will not make enough of an impact, but very, very encouraging to know that we can do something about it. So as far as impact entrepreneurship goes, plastic waste is a new frontier. We're very excited to see market-based models to address these issues. And of course, super excited for these 5 enterprises and the work they are doing and the impact that they are going to make.
Very encouraging words, Greg. Thank you so much. Just for the benefit of the audience members who may not be familiar with Xchange, maybe you can tell us a bit more about the organization and your role in it.
Sure, yeah. Sorry, that is my son. He tends to always want to be part of my calls, but that's our new normal, right? So Xchange is an impact investor and incubator in early stage social enterprises in the Philippines. So what that means is we provide both financial and non-financial support to enterprises, in diverse sectors such as education, agriculture, solar, electric vehicles, and so many others. No? And Sandrine also mentioned R2R, which is in sustainable fashion. So I'm a director at Xchange. I've been with Xchange since 2014. So I work directly with entrepreneurs, with the heads of the enterprises on strategy, governance, operations, and really basically help them with whatever it is they need to help figure out their business models, how to become sustainable, figure out the unknowns, figure out strategy. So my own background is before joining Xchange, I ran a social enterprise, Gifts and Graces, that worked with different micro entrepreneurs all over the country and brought their products to market. Before that, I worked in a grassroots organization, working in microfinance and livelihood in Paco and Pandacan. So really among the poorest of the poor. So 15 plus years in social development. I probably shouldn't have said that, or else I'm dating myself. On a personal note, also so happy to be part of this initiative because I have a personal advocacy on sustainable fashion and wanting to start something along those lines. So a while ago, it was mentioned that PPEs are one of the problems, right? Well, not a problem, as Anna mentioned that this is something that we really need, but I'm working on developing a PPE that is made out of 100% cotton, so that then it's a sustainable solution to this.
I love that passions and experiences, backgrounds are just merging all over the place, and it's super cool to hear from you, Greg, and your background. I'd love to hear your insights, especially with what you mentioned earlier that, impact is definitely a question right now. Like, there's a lot of efforts coming in from individuals by changing our own behavior, the way we view and manage plastics in our daily lives, and even from social startups such as the 5 teams that we just met. No, if you could tell us a bit more, Greg, no, in your experience and exposure with Xchange, and maybe even before that, can you share with us a few factors that makes social startups impactful in their endeavors?
Sure. Yeah. So what we've done is kind of this year we've also gone through reflection. I mean, every year we take a look at what really makes an impact. So while we don't really have hard and fast criteria of what is impactful, there are a few points that I want to share and what's important to Xchange, including first of all that the enterprise at an enterprise level, they should be addressing a systemic problem. And that the impact is built into the business model itself. So we're seeing some models where kind of the CSR model, right, where the business earns money, earns a profit, and then supports through CSR. But what we are really advocating is an impact market-based model where the impact is already built into the business model. And for that to happen, then you need to have a systemic approach, a strategic approach, as Zarina mentioned earlier, a comprehensive solution, and an innovative solution. So like in this slide, we are big fans of experimentation, and we really believe in the iteration process because as we've seen with many enterprises, or almost all actually, the idea that you start with, the solution that you start with, is not necessarily the solution that you end with, or it's not the solution that really solves a problem, or it's not the solution that will take you to sustainability. So really you have to go through this whole feedback loop from idea to prototype to testing to analysis and so on and so forth. And this might happen twice, thrice. In some cases, some of our enterprises have actually pivoted more than 10 times. And it's really that passion to solve the problem. So one thing that we always say is that don't fall in love with the solution that you have now, because that solution might change, but fall in love and be passionate about solving the problem. And also in connection with what has already been said earlier, engage other stakeholders, have the humility to know that you don't know everything, that there are other points of views out there that could inform your own solution, and have that diversity in points of view, and have the scale mindset. So what we really want to see are entrepreneurs who want to make a big change, who have big ambitions, because we have big problems. There's a line of thinking that says small is beautiful, and that's great. But for us at Exchange, given the urgency and the enormity, the quantum of the problem, really we're looking for enterprises who look at impact at scale. And so would love to chat more about that. Just don't want to take up a lot of the time, but I guess this is kind of our top tips in terms of what we're looking for when we look at an enterprise for impact.
All right. Thank you so much, Greg. That actually was going to be my follow-up question. It was if there was any advice or tips that you could give to entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs out there, so that they can make sure that they're solving the right problems and challenges in the right way as well. But you said a lot about tips already. I would love if you could expound more on this, or maybe emphasize and echo the most important points for you. But if you could also address the audience who may not be aspiring entrepreneurs or not entrepreneurs, if you have any tips on how they can make sure that their own actions as individuals are or can be impactful, especially towards the challenge of solving the plastic waste in the country or elsewhere.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things that I love about Make Sense approach is really bringing out the sense of agency in people. Again, knowing that even a little bit matters, but to just grow on that sense of agency that you start at home. You start with yourself, with your own practices. We need to be mindful that all our actions have a corresponding impact. So we cannot continue living in a bubble and thinking that what we do doesn't matter, because whether it's positive or negative, it does. And if we can, within our own sphere of influence, within our own circle of influence, just keep reminding people, and again, having that conversation, and keeping really that passion in front of you, because one other piece of advice that we give entrepreneurs, but whether you're an entrepreneur or not, sometimes when we feel defeated or when we feel hopeless, we really have to go back to our why and what's important for us. And the other thing I would say is to learn. Learn, keep studying, keep reading. There are some people who have, give advice but haven't really studied the problem. And we really want to be one of those that when we make an informed decision or when we make a recommendation, then it's because we know. And that's why I really appreciated also the first part, with Dr. Tonette and Zarina, and really understanding the problem, because this is such a huge problem. And solutions start with a clear understanding. Um, but if I could add also in terms of advice for the entrepreneurs, aside from keeping on learning, don't take accounting for granted. This is our new normal. This is our, this is we need to think about business continuity, and so we need to manage cash, know our numbers, build an ecosystem, and applicable for all of us, not just for entrepreneurs, is really self-care. There's urgency in what we're doing, and sometimes as entrepreneurs or as change makers, sometimes we're hard on ourselves. So we can have urgency but also be gentle on ourselves, and have a group around you so that you have a support system, in case you feel passion or hope or optimism flagging.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Greg. A lot of things I highlighted from that part. Particularly, it's amazing that you echoed all of this. And personally, I appreciate that you mentioned how important intentionality, like starting with the why and refocusing on why you started in the first place, and then making sure that you take care of yourself in the process, because it's important to not let yourself burn out as well. um, I know that there might be a lot of questions and curiosities that the audience might want to say, and translate to Greg. I'm so sorry we don't have a lot of time, but please do send in your questions, your comments, your love, to Greg and to the rest of the speakers that we had for tonight. I would love to give the mic back now to Sandrine, as I thank Greg for being with us. Thank you so much. Sandrine, please do take us to the next step again. Thank you.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much, Angeli, and thank you, Greg. I think that was a wonderful conclusion to the entire event. Definitely a lot of the things that you said hold true right now, especially in the context of COVID. So, for example, the whole iteration process, the pandemic is a moment where people really have to be flexible and reactive to change. And I think this is something that the entrepreneurs definitely resonate with, because, throughout their training as part of Plastic Smart Cities, they have had to do a lot of adapting and pivoting, while always keeping in mind the reason why they're doing this project. So basically, their main motivator and their vision. And these are all things that are super important to keep in mind as they go through further development of their project. So, all right, guys, we're at the end of our event. I hope that you really enjoyed this and learned a lot of things. So now we're going to be able to start our networking session. But before that, I'm just going to share my screen and show you how it works. So basically, this platform that is called AirMeet. It's super easy. Basically, all you have to do once you're on the link is to grab a seat at any of these tables. And this allows you to network with some of the speakers, the entrepreneurs, as if you were at an in-person event. So all you have to do is click on this link here. My colleague will be posting it on the live stream, the comment section of the live stream. So just click on this link, and then once you're on AirMeet, you're going to have a general chat with everyone where you can ask questions, but you're also going to have these tables where our entrepreneurs will be waiting for you guys to just open up the discussion with them and maybe take it a bit further if you're interested in knowing more about what they're doing and everything. And once you click on one of the tables, you're actually going to have a private video and chat that is going to open up with the people at this table. So just like so. Thank you, Joko, for the wonderful example. And yeah, basically you can chat with the person, talk to them, introduce yourself, etc. So I'm gonna be keeping the link on here for a couple of minutes, so you can take time to write it down. Two things for you to know: there's a maximum capacity of 40 people on the platform for tonight, so it's first come first serve, and I hope that everyone will have the opportunity to join. And an additional thing is you have the questions that you had for the speakers or the entrepreneurs, feel free to send them to me. My email address is right here. It's sandrine@makesense.org. And then I'll transfer them to the speakers so that they can answer all of your questions. So guys, that's it. Again, thank you so much for joining. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of minutes on Air Meet. Thank you.